Next, I have a repeat guest, but we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Susan Mehiel. And, Susan has been a strong fighter for transparency and safety with the train issue, Brightline. But Susan, we chit chat a lot back and forth through emails. And she sent out an email to me about a month ago, and it was something that slipped by me somehow in the newspaper. But there was an article, What is Communist and What Do Communists Believe? And this was in the kids section of USA Today, our local
Yes,
paper.
of our local paper in a number of papers around the region. I'm still not sure how many, but yes, it turned out after I asked the editors of the Press Journal in Vero Beach if this was paid advertising or was this a freebie, and the whole frigging page was free. And they lifted it from a radical lefty organization made up mostly of journalists who claim to be experts in all kinds of things, mainly the climate crisis. So you get a feel for where they're coming from. And yes, they wrote a page, and they have supposedly this thing they do regularly, which is children ask questions. So this was gauged or geared to kids. And it left everything negative out about communism and included everything that they think is positive, fair, and wonderful. And heads exploded really throughout the area that I live in. And so there ensued, and many people probably have seen it, numerous letters to the editor. I just want to add, because there's so many things to talk about today.
The election was huge. Huge.
I want to add that in my letter to the executive editor of our paper in the Press Journal, and I'm not sure if it's all of Regional TC Palm, I think it is, I asked, was it paid or was it freebie space? And did they think twice about publishing this directed at kids? And his comment back was, well, the person that makes up the paper and I talked, and we decided it was probably bad timing.
It's more than bad timing.
Oh, Lord have mercy. It was very bad. It was all around bad. And everybody that saw it flipped out and were as upset as we were.
And Susan, you actually brought up the point too, and I'm going to read an excerpt from that article so folks understand why we were upset. But secondly, you said, where's the opposing opinion? That was the other thing. They put this very rosy picture of communism in the paper under the kids section, but there was no opposing story.
No, it's true. And I had a letter to the editor published in our local paper yesterday. Of course, I didn't even see it because I was out
Right, I haven't either.
posting signs.
Okay. Yay.
But yes, and at the end, it dawned on me, and I included the fact that it's interesting that our local paper publishes this because in a communist country, they really wouldn't even exist.
No.
Because the government would produce all of the media and control the internet, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was pretty ironic.
It is extremely ironic. And the conversation, they wrote back, the organization that printed this, a nonprofit independent news organization dedicated to unlocking the knowledge of experts for the public good. Now, I just got to read an excerpt of this article. I think it was October, it was a Friday. It might have been October 18th.
Might have been.
I think it was, folks, if you want to go back in TC Palm and get the article. But here, in part because the U.S. has difficult relationships with these countries, many Americans have negative views of communist and communism. We're talking about China, North Korea, Cuba, Vietnam. And then they talked about the principles of communism. Communists believe that people should share wealth so that no one is too poor, no one is too rich, and everyone has enough to survive and have a good life. In communism, people work together to produce and distribute the things they need to live, such as food, clothing, and entertainment. That does not mean that everything is shared at all times. In a communist society, individuals might still live in their own homes and have their own food.
Maybe.
They might. It might. Clothing and personal items such as televisions and cell phones. However, the places where these items were produced, such as factories and farms, will all be owned by everyone. One big happy society. Similarly, a person might still create artistic products such as works of literature or craftsmanship on their own.
Right.
Long as it goes along with what the government approves of, because otherwise you might get killed. You know, I have a lot of things to say about communism, and I think part of it, Susan, is people are losing why so many people came here to America to escape communism. And I'm grateful in my family. My great grandmother came from Russia, and some of her stories were passed down. Folks, she was 16 years old. She was the oldest in her family, did not speak a lick of English, and she had to leave because there was not enough food in this communist country to survive for the winter. Somebody had to leave so the younger ones could survive. Okay. She came here as an indentured servant and worked in New York for a year to pay off her indentured servitude. And she became a citizen in the 60s. I think she came in 1910. It took her lifelong, but she was so grateful of America. But that was communism. There was not enough food to go around.
And it's really, see, you know the history because of a family experience, and it's really indicative of our history classes today for kids, that they're leaving out so much. And one of the things people never talk about is when Castro took over Cuba. When he took over Cuba, someone came to you, if you were a business owner or a plantation owner, and said, we're from the government and we're your new partner. And if you had any questions and didn't like any of that, they just shot you. Because, as this article said, the people, quote unquote, own all of the businesses. It's just outrageous. And the other one thing that I think is so critically left out is what it was like to live behind the Iron Curtain.
Right. Right.
And there are a couple of good movies that date back a while about life behind the Iron Curtain, but you had the SS or the Gestapo, whatever they were called, in East Germany, and you couldn't leave, you couldn't do anything, and people need to understand that wasn't that long ago. And we'll just, so this whole thing about the rosy picture melds well with what we've found in curriculum these days and what really needs to be changed.
Oh, that's what's scary. And I wanted to do this show because I couldn't believe how rosy the picture was on this communist article. There's two other excerpts I wanted to read. Communists support some form of collective ownership. Ownership by everyone would ensure that all members of society have equal rights to the products from the factories and farms because they would be part owners of the enterprise. Sounds great. It is not at all true what really happens. That's what, there was no opposing view of this. And in such a society, everyone would also have equal political rights and would participate in governance together. Theoretically, communism should entail some form of democracy. Theoretically, I love that.
And they never mention one phrase in there about voting.
No.
About electing representatives, about a bottom-up form of government. Or a republic, of course, because they never want to mention republic if they can throw in the D word.
Right.
It's
100%. And there was
just outrageous.
It was, and I think what really got me is this was a kids section.
I know.
They're showing communism in such a positive light. Nothing that I was ever taught. And I came from a family that escaped communism. So gratefully, I'm American. I'm third generation. I never knew what it was like personally, but I had those stories passed down to me. And there's so many more. My grandfather said, he remembers the gun rights were taken away. And it was all to protect you. It's like what we hear today. And he said, they're doing it for your own good, and the government will protect you. And then one day, the citizens didn't have guns. And all of a sudden, the government was all powerful. Yep.
Yeah, now, and the other thing, my family, the most stories I heard about, because they came over, some came over early, some came from Germany, but it was during the Great Migration. And they had very, very, very little to live on, particularly during the Depression. My grandmother, from good, solid German stock, cleaned houses every day. That included coming to make breakfast, lunch, and starting dinner and cleaning. And she did it for $2 a day. And somebody undercut her price and stole half her business, and she learned about what competition is.
Right. Which is what we're based on.
And kids don't hear enough of this.
They don't, and I'm encouraging families to pass down these stories because it's gone, it's lost, and everybody thinks, oh, it's wonderful, we're all taken care of, and they're making some business owners that are successful almost evil. Look what happened. Let's go into the election now with Elon Musk out there supporting Trump. And you know that in itself turned into its own story. You know, heaven forbid this man be self-made and he has too much money. So,
Oh, gosh. And he bought Twitter after they shut it,
oh
basically
yes,
closed everybody
that was
down.
a losing
Yes.
deal for him.
That, but yeah, I think one of the things I wanted to mention is that last night was all about common sense. And that's what we've been talking about some of the time during this campaign, that it's just common sense, the things they wanted to do. And I want to relate that to the train situation too, because I think hopefully we can all get back to using common sense about this whole enterprise that has just destroyed lives and businesses and all sorts of things. I think about the fact that this has also been about the deep state and controlled from our governments and greasing the skids if you have money. And we saw this with the trains. We saw the US DOT and the Transportation Department ignore common sense and allow this train to go ahead through here and get tax subsidies through the private activity bonds.
And it's worse than that now, right? I mean, they're
Oh,
taking so
yes.
much taxpayer money. Susan, I want to let folks know that next Tuesday at 9:05 a.m., the Martin County Board of Commissioners are meeting. I'm encouraging everybody, no matter what the issue is, to come and speak or at least sit in the audience and wear black or blue. We're saying you feel a little bumped and bruised, wear black and blue. It's we want to be polite and be respectful, but we need to be demanding transparency from our elected officials, and we're not seeing that lately.
No, you're not here.
And so it's time, whatever the issue is, the Wawa coming out on Canner, there's 5G, the 5G tower that just popped up in Stewart that folks didn't know about, our comp plan amendments that just seem to be rushed through. So whatever the issue is, please come and speak. Just wear black and blue to let people know that the residents are united. Susan, I'm going to jump back to the train here for
Oh, sure,
a
sure.
second. You know, right now with Martin County, and folks, Susan Mehiel has worked diligently. She has headed up Alliance
Safe trains.
for Safe Trains. She has, from the very beginning, worked side by side. We tried to bring awareness to Allport, Florida, and you still do to this day try to bring awareness on the safety issues. What's going on right now with Martin County is the train station. They had a settlement agreement where, you know, Brightline was supposed to pay for 50%, the county would pay for 50%. Any grants that were received would be allocated proportionally between the two entities. Now, Brightline wants Martin County to pay for 100% of it. They've been on record in the public said we are not going to allocate any capital to this project. And you know what kind of is strange to me is our business community. Realtor Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Development Board, wholly support this. And it blows my mind because the business community and our local small businesses don't get that financial support of somebody to build up 100% of their infrastructure on taxpayer dollars, whether it's grants or just giving them money. They don't get that. They don't get the support from the local community. So how is our business community all of a sudden getting behind a business that, first of all, there is no model ever to make a profit on passenger rail? So
Or to bring numbers of people here to support the existing businesses.
well, they only want to do
businesses.
2 stops.
No.
They're going to do 8 just to quiet people down. They said 8, but it's only a test. It's only temporary. It'll end up being the 2.
And what's incredibly, I think it's important for people to understand too, is the business model and the business people here. I doubt anyone in this county or other counties that want to stop have done a true marketing study to
have not.
determine what the benefits would be. And what I can tell everyone is that Brightline did a marketing study back before they developed this railroad. And one of the key features for everyone in Martin County to understand is that they calculated if the getting from point A to point B took X number of minutes longer, they would lose a percentage of ridership. So their whole scheme is based on going very fast to get to the Orlando airport through our second phase section at 110 miles an hour. Now, think about that and think about having to slow down, going through Martin County and getting to the bridge. And then what do they want to do? They want to speed it all the way up the coast. They're going to slow down to turn left, and that's where they've said Cocoa could have a stop. right now, Martin County is in the catbird seat as far as desirability of that train to want the stop here.
So, Martin County Commissioners, you don't have to give away everything.
Thing.
You actually do have bargaining power here, and they've already agreed to 50% in your settlement agreement. There's no reason to give away.
No.
The house
and
here.
why hand them your town on a platter when you have no idea what the true benefit will be? Because I'm telling you, I know people in Palm City, they say things like, well, 2 times a day or 3 times a day, big deal. I might want to ride it to Orlando 1 time.
Right.
I
It's
don't
not every
travel
day.
anymore that much anymore, so I'm not going to the airport. It's not going to help anybody that lives here now, frankly, and it's not going to bring hordes of people to buy in your stores. This is just not happening, and they really would love to stall this stop because they don't need it.
They don't need it. They don't want it, which is why they don't want to pay for any of it either.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
And then we pay for it, and they decide not to have any stops. There's absolutely no repercussion other than we get our station back. That we paid for everything. So we're asking these commissioners to slow down. Let's stop being transparent. And for me, don't amend the settlement agreement. You made this a settlement agreement. There's no reason to amend it.
I think one other thing I'd like to mention, which is sort of off topic, but real quickly, with the great election we had last night, we can hope that President Trump moves forward on increasing our sale of energy, which could include LNG, which might mean we need to keep an eye on how much LNG goes where through our counties, because that was one of their original game plans. It hasn't panned out, but they needed that double track, not for passenger, but for freight.
New Fortress Energy is a division of Fortress, and that is
Exactly.
specifically what they're focusing on, is increasing LNG transportation and production.
Yes.
So again,
Ticking time bombs.
it's incredibly explosive. I've done shows on it, folks. Look it up. LNG. It's extremely dangerous. So Susan, this is really the show. It's so quick, but
I'm sorry.
we'll have you back.
Yeah.
But people, we just need to be aware. Keep your eyes open. Look what we opened up the kids section of the paper.
Yes.
Susan, you and I aren't kids anymore, and
It's everywhere.
It is. You have to speak up and demand transparency. And when you see something, speak up. My previous guest was talking about transparency in health. It's the same thing. It takes people like you. It takes people like her, myself, folks. We need to speak up and let our elected officials know we're not complacent. We're not silent. We are paying attention.
And RFK Jr. is going to make sure.
100%. I know. RFK will. So, and that actually we were talking about him a little bit with the healthcare issues. So that's really what's important here today. So Susan, you came down today. We have a few minutes left here, but this election was absolutely incredible. I was surprised how decisive, and I was hoping it would be so that the nation isn't continually arguing for the next 2-3 weeks. We know a winner this morning, and even here in Florida, it was tremendous red wave. St. Lucie County, which is between you and I, that traditionally was going blue, it's not anymore. It's a solid red county.
That's good. I haven't had time actually to check the local stuff except for the state
Amendments.
amendments.
Right. Which we covered that only 2 of those passed as well. So there's just so much going on, but people got involved. And Susan, I mentioned it, but we were having issues with the sound earlier. The voter turnout was incredible. Martin County,
Yes.
I think it was 85 or 88%. I can't find my sticker. 85%. St. Lucie County, 74%. Indian River County, 82%.
Yes.
Palm Beach County, 84%.
Those have to be record breakers, don't they?
They have to be.
I was looking at that last night, and we were up to 80.1 or something, and I'm thinking, that's got to be a record breaker.
I think it has to be as well. I wish we'd get that kind of turnout for our primaries as well.
Gosh. Yes. Yes.
But I was just impressed, and thank God that people are showing up, and that's what it's about. So our voices are heard, and they were across the nation. So
Yes. That's great.
How late did you stay up last night watching the election?
1:30.
Oh, you beat me.
Oh gosh, my husband didn't want to go to sleep, but he wanted to watch Trump, and
Yes.
I just said no. We can watch it in the morning.
I know it. I'm going to go back to YouTube. I'm going to make sure to watch everything. I tuckered out at 10:30. I have to be honest. However, my daughter, who's 15, she woke me up. I think it was like 2 or 2:30, saying Trump won. So she was watching that election to let us know. So there's just been so many issues. And honestly, watching the media before the elections, I thought this was going to be a lot closer because that's how the media kind of spreads the news.
I think a lot of us had guarded optimism You know, it was, you just keep thinking, you heard more and more about Hispanics and black folks, particularly younger black men, and it just seemed like that it was coming along quietly too. And I think that what I've read and heard a couple, you know, there was a tendency to not want to say who you really were going to vote for,
Right.
because you didn't want to upset somebody.
People get
And,
crazy.
and I think that worked better for us than it did for them, although they tried to push that concept with
Yes.
some of those horrendous, cringeworthy ads.
Yes. There was too much of an undercurrent, though. And this is going to be a really interesting administration because we were just talking before you came on air as well. The House and the Senate, right now, they are red. So he may have the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
The House could be real skinny. I mean, that's the bad
Still
part.
watching that,
Yeah.
right.
And I think they're trying everything they can out in the western states to fiddle with that. I really do believe it.
So keep watching those. There are some of those races that are still outstanding out there. But, you know, this could be really interesting. He really only had 2 years in office before his legs were cut out from under him with COVID. So he's
And
back.
those two were really battlefields. So
They were.
Yeah.
But he was making tremendous ground.
He knows now.
Yes, he does now.
Bigly.
And you know, watch the unemployment rates. Watch people's income. That's something that has been going down, and our cost of living, inflation's been going up. I have a feeling that's going to change, and you know, that's what's going to make America stronger and better as we take care of our own without communism.
Right. Right.
We can do this.
We didn't build businesses for nothing.
I know it. And you know what? If you
Blood,
take
sweat,
the
and
risk
tears.
as a business owner, you should reap the rewards.
That's right.
Brightline's not doing that. They're putting the risk actually on all their bondholders. There's over $6 billion in debt. One thing I would have to clear up on that. Everybody's like, they put $6 billion into the infrastructure
No,
to
they
build it.
didn't.
No, they didn't. They borrowed $6 billion. And a lot of that $6 billion came because they're refinancing very high interest rated debt. So, you know,
You know the finances. I just know the yelling and the.
exactly. Yeah, Susan and I have been on this a very long time. So, Susan, anything else you got going? Because I know we've got just 2 minutes, but you have followed the safety regulations along. Is there anything we should be looking out for on the horizon?
We'll just keep people aware. I mean, we're still tracking deaths. They're at 120 plus, and people are starting to not blame it on the poor victim, and that's a good thing. And I think that now that it's coming to fruition, people are actually seeing what we talked about a long time ago.
all the grade
all
crossings.
the negatives.
There's
Yes,
over 340 grade
it was not
crossings.
supposed to be built here. Period.
It wasn't. And folks, everybody's like, we got to be like Europe. Well, Europe has tunnels, they have bridges across these grade crossings, and these are going through such populated areas. We've been saying this for years. I'm tired, too, of hearing how everybody's committed suicide. In fact, there's a lawsuit going on right now, somebody that was killed through the
goodness.
Brightline train, and I wish that lawsuit all the success, because it's going to take something like that, I think, to institute safety regulations, because unfortunately it is not happening through our government
No, it is
at all.
not.
So, Susan Mehiel, you shot down here from Vero Beach this morning. I appreciate it. She was
Broke
so.
all speed records.
We talked about this show, and then we got caught up in the election. And she called me this morning. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I've been so into the election. I forgot this is Wednesday morning already." So, appreciate you coming down
Good to
here.
see you. Thank you so much.
You as well, Susan. We'll be back, and next week we're actually going to have the Hamiltons on. They have a local issue here with a church and the city of Stewart, and some grant money that has went awry. So we'll talk with them next week. And appreciate it again, Susan. You take care. Safe drive back. You can slow up on your way back to Vero Beach
And get coffee.
and get coffee. We'll see you next week. Take care now.